Memory is the persistence of learning over time through the encoding, storage, and retrieval of information. As Myers states in Module 31, it is what accounts for time and defines our life. Memory serves to help us locate, recognize, enjoy, and replay things.
The process of memorizing is very complex. Humans can form memories in 3 stages. The first stage is called encoding. Encoding is the process of getting information into our brains. Humans retain this information in the next stage, storage. When humans need to get information from memory storage later down the road, it can be done through the last stage, retrieval. These stages can be seen in episode 12 when the Dunphy family is cleaning out their house. Claire insists that Phil needs to throw away useless items such as a snow globe.
As you said, this lady clapping with a kiss on both cheeks. Oh. Bob's your uncle. Oh. Keep waving up high. Wave up high so she can't look down low. Son of a...
Seriously?
Honey, we don't want to give this stuff away. We like it. It's important to us.
How can it be important to you? You didn't even know it existed until I told you to go through the closet and find it.
That is beside the point. All of this stuff is packed with meaning.
Really, Phil? What does this cheap snow globe mean to you?
We got that at a gas station in Florida. The snowman's melted. It used to just be funny, but now it's also a poignant statement on global warming.
Even though Phil didn't remember that a lot of the old items existed, he remembers how special they are to him, such as the snow globe. He extracted meaning from it by associating the snow globe with Florida, the place where he bought it, and stored this information in his memory system. By explaining how it is special to Claire, he is retrieving this memory from his storage.
The memory-forming process can be further explained by the Atkinson-Shiffrin model, which also includes 3 major stages. Humans record immediate sensory information in sensory memory first. From there, it is encoded and processed into short-term memory, a type of memory that holds few items briefly, such as numbers. If the auditory and visual spatial sensory information is consciously encoded, then it will be processed in working memory, another type of short-term memory. Then it is moved into long-term memory for storage and later retrieval.
Effortful processing is encoding that requires attention and conscious effort. This is seen in episode 13 when Claire starts her new job and embodies the stereotypical attitude of a powerful white male. This new persona changes the dynamic of Claire and Phil's relationship due to Claire's disregard for Phil. Phil does not realize Claire's actions are insulting until he has dinner with her co-workers' wives.
What do you say, ladies? Another round of Sapphire Sins?
Phil, you were just so much fun.
Thank you.
It is so nice to hear those words come out of a man's mouth. Tell me about it. Ever since Kyle got that promotion, he barely acknowledges me.
Come on now, I'm sure he knows how lucky he is. You have the twins, a spotless house, killer yoga arms.
This happens all the time. They get on their track to success and you become the invisible housewife.
I don't know about all the time. Sitting with all those gals, I thought, wow, this is an insane amount of perfume. And also, am I on my way to becoming an invisible housewife? No way. There'd be signs, right?
Phil then compares his experience with Claire to the other comments made by the women and consciously notices and interprets Claire's disrespectful actions.
Phil, I'm late for an appointment with a client. Can you do me a favor?
If it's to put flowers in the bathroom, I already did.
Oh, I hadn't noticed.
Not surprised.
Okay, I was supposed to get this client a bottle of scotch. I haven't had time to do it myself. So can you pick one up and bring it down to the office?
Whatever you need. I have to go out for a haircut anyway.
Great.
Except I got a haircut yesterday.
Wow, this kitchen really is a mess, huh? I'm off.
As seen, Phil encodes this information with conscious effort to compare his experience with those of the other complaining women. Then, he retrieves the consciously encoded information when venting to Gloria.
Before we continue, we have a memory activity for you to complete. Below is a spot the difference game. Can you guess all 5 differences? This activity relates to effortful processing because of the conscious effort and attention it took for your brain to encode and compare these pictures. Before encoding, it was probably very tough to figure out the differences in the photos. But once they were spotted, your brain could easily see them when revisiting those sections of the pictures. One strategy of effortful processing is the testing effect. This effect enhances memory by retrieving information after learning it, rather than simply rereading information. In episode 4, Phil focuses his attention on how to ducklings and prepare for their hatching. While he is shopping for their habitat, Claire notices the eggs starting to hatch.
Oh my god, Phil, I think it's hatching.
Wait, what? Are you sure?
What do I do?
Okay, stay calm. I'll talk you through the labor. They're coming, Lily! Okay, Claire, tell me what you see.
Oh god, I think I see a beak.
Well, the good news is we're not breached.
It looks like it's struggling to break through.
Okay, if you are concerned about traumatizing him, strap on that toucan beak I wore last Halloween when we dressed as Fruit Loops and start pecking.
I'm using a fork.
Steady hands, Claire. I've seen you play Operation.
Oh, it hatched. So cute. Oh, it's so cute.
I can't believe I'm missing this. Hey, buddy! You're telling people I was there.
I think another one's hatching.
What? I'm sorry, Lily. Speed bump in 3, 2.
Phil's ability to recite the instructions is accurately delivered in a calm manner. His memory is exceptional, suggesting that he most likely tested himself on his ability to recite the instructions prior to the actual birth. After testing his knowledge of how to hatch the eggs, he was able to easily retrieve this information because he has revisited it multiple times. His self-testing benefited him in the long run and ultimately enhanced his memory of otherwise irrelevant knowledge.
Emotions trigger stress hormones that influence memory formation. When humans are emotional, their hormones produce more glucose energy to fuel brain activity. This signals to the brain that something significant has occurred, thus initiating memory formation. An example of this is a concept called flashbulb memory. These memories are clear recollections of emotionally significant events or moments. It's as if the brain says, "Capture this," and helps to explain why humans can remember meaningful events distinctly after time has passed. This concept can be applied in episode 14 when Phil faints in the funhouse.
Sebastian, your mom's worried about you, buddy, even though there's absolutely no reason to be. Oh, God. Clowns. They were everywhere.
This embarrassing experience will be something Phil vividly remembers for years because it was traumatic for him. Before you continue, we have a memory activity for you to complete. I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Write them down if it helps you remember. Number 1. What did you do the night of your 16th birthday? Number 2. What did you do the night of March 3rd, 2010? Think about your 2 answers. Which memory is more vivid? Chances are, your memory of your 16th birthday is more clear than your memory of March 3rd, 2010, because your 16th birthday, important emotional milestone that was most likely celebrated. This activity exemplifies the effects of flashbulb memory. Here's an example of modern research that relates to the topic of flashbulb memory. This case studied different factors of people's memories of September 11th, 2001. Subjects were given memory questionnaires at varying lengths of time after the attacks. The results showed that the participants remembered very well the circumstances in which they first heard about the terrorist attacks, that they were very confident about this information, and that these memories were characterized by a high phenomenal richness. Over time, people's ratings of phenomenology and confidence in their memories remained very high.
Memories are not always 100% accurate since they are based off of stored information and future inferences. One effect that contributes to falsified memories is the misinformation effect, the incorporating of misleading information into one's memory of an event. When exposed to misleading information, humans tend to misremember. This effect can be seen in episode 13 when Phil incorporates the work wife's observations on marriage into his own relationship with Claire and starts her new job. Before having dinner with the women, he thinks that Claire giving him a buggy duck is the best gift ever.
I saw this and I thought of you.
What is it? It's a key?
Yeah, it is. It is a key. But a key to what?
No! You got me a buggy duck?
No more walking for my man. Walking's for jerks.
Oh my god, that is the best gift ever! I don't know where it stops and I begin!
However, after dinner, he remembers this moment differently.
Excuse me, Gloria. Apparently I don't know how to keep a kitchen clean.
What is that?
Oh, just a little hush-up gift from my powerful wife who thinks she can take me for granted. And I'll just hover after her like a little puppy dog.
Phil's memory becomes subject to the misinformation effect due to the incorporation of the woman's misleading information. False memories may feel as convincing as real ones, and even though they can be persistent, they are usually limited to the general idea of the event, not the specifics. Another example of modern research is how neurologists can use brain scans to identify if memories are real or false. A study was done in 2005 to see how the misinformation effect affects the brain. It was found that different patterns of gamma waves could discern the authenticity of memories.
Forgetting can be caused by encoding failure, storage decay, retrieval failure, interference, or brain damage. Another way people can forget things is due to one of Freud's defense mechanisms, repression. Repression banishes from the consciousness anxiety-arousing thoughts, feelings, and memories. In episode 14, after Phil faints in the funhouse, he desperately tries to forget the event by overcompensating.
Try to open the door.
Well, lucky for you, your uncle brother-in-law Phil is here. And with one mighty twist, we should be good to go.
Dad, stop helping! Ugh.
Phil represses the painful memory to protect his self-concept and tries to fix everything in Jay's house in order to feel self-assured. This particular repression is temporary, as his repressed memory lingers and is retrieved later by familial cues.
Cognition describes all of the mental activities associated with thinking, knowing, remembering, and communicating. One example of cognition is our ability to form concepts. A concept is a mental grouping of similar objects, ideas, events, or people. It can include multiple different items that all perform the same general function. They simplify our thinking by making it easier to communicate the general idea of something with clarity and accuracy. In episode 15, Phil envies Claire's seemingly enhanced cognition as she successfully remembers all of her different tasks and errands and completes them. While she secretly uses the help of her assistant to get everything done, the completion of all these tasks causes her family to perceive her with increased cognition.
One birthday present.
Wrapped in baby shower paper.
One crisply pressed dress.
With one big pleat it didn't used to have. At least we know why you were late. Looks like you rescued those cupcakes from a burning bakery. Don't worry, Mom made those on the off chance what everyone knew was gonna happen happened. She also bought me that new dress. Oh, and I hope you kept the receipt because Mom brought it back up.
Well, don't be mad at your mom for underestimating me.
How could we when she made us this fresh hand-churned ice cream?
What?
Oh, do you know what we should do? We should send her a picture of us eating it.
I guess it's a good thing I came when I
It'd
did.
be better if I did it. Yeah.
An example of concept is in episode 13 when Phil goes out to dinner with a few of the wives of Claire's coworkers. This group of women are portrayed to accentuate his concept of rich housewives.
Is that a new bracelet? Oh, yes it is. Jim bought it for me after our last big fight. I was on him about taking all those business trips. That's what they do. Throw some new piece of jewelry at you to keep you happy. Not that I'm complaining. Oh.
Right?
They gossip and drink wine together, but Phil defies the concept because he is male.
Creativity is the ability to produce novel and valuable ideas. There are 5 factors associated with creativity. The first factor is expertise, a well-developed base of knowledge. The next factor are imaginative thinking skills, the ability to see things in novel ways, to recognize patterns, and to make new connections. The third factor is to have a venturesome personality, seeking new experiences, tolerating ambiguity and risk, and persevering in overcoming obstacles. The fourth is intrinsic motivation, being driven by interest and satisfaction rather than external pressure. Finally, the last factor is having a creative environment, somewhere that sparks, supports, and refines creative ideas.
One way to promote creativity is to hone your divergent thinking skills. Creative ideas normally take something abstract and expand the number of possible solutions. Research identifies these ideas for boosting creativity, developing your expertise, allowing time for incubation, setting aside time for the mind to roam freely, and experiencing other cultures or ways of thinking.
One example of creativity is Phil's obsession with building an elaborate duck village in episode 4. What starts as a simple idea of a duck village turns into an elaborate duck kingdom with copious detail and different components. This shows Phil expanding the number of possible solutions to a previously abstract concept.
Hey, honey, can you read that?
Quack Nicholson.
Oh, good. If I spent the whole morning painting these tiny duck mailboxes and no one could read them, I'd feel pretty ridiculous.
Phil Duckfeed.
Hey, that's almost my name.
Or I'm sorry.
You're right. I'm sorry. I'll sweep that up in a minute.
Just come over here and help dust me off. I've got an important meeting and I can't go into the office covered in flaxseed.
It's actually a proprietary blend of oats, grubworms, and cricket parts.
He goes on to explain to Lily how he likes being different and not caring what people think about him, which represents the imaginative thinking and venturesome personality that contribute to his creativity. The elaborate duck village is a perfect example of Phil's creativity.
So, ask this guy to get to the nail salon, and word on the street is they're putting in a CrossFit next door.
Why are these 2 eggs sticky?
Because the neighbor's dog is a real slobberer, but he's not very fast.
My teacher says that there's no such thing as weird, just different.
Oh, that's a lovely random thought. I drew up plans for a Buckingham Palace, but I can't find them, so I guess we'll just have to wing it.
What the heck is that?
Oh, it's a duck call to make the ducklings feel safe.
Should there be another adult present?
No, but there should be a kid present. That kid is you. You've got your whole life to roll your eyes. Today isn't just about building a duck village. It's about building your smile. Don't bite it. There it is. As you can see, our little duck harbor has a working lighthouse. Wait a second, what in the world did he just say? A working lighthouse? Yes, it is working. Pretty cool, huh? Easy, easy, Lily. Forget everything you ever heard about eggs. Actually,
Various cognitive strategies can be used to assist in problem solving. One strategy, algorithms, use logical rule or procedure to guarantee a solution. Another strategy, heuristics, allows people to make judgments and solve problems efficiently. This strategy is usually speedier and more efficient, but also is more when Phil tries to heat the eggs after accidentally leaving them in the fridge. First, he uses an algorithm to heat the eggs.
What are you doing with those lights?
trying to get some heat on these eggs due to a grocery mishap. They spent about 7 minutes in the fridge.
So, eggs you found a month ago, building a whole village for them now. How's everything at home, okay?
There is some debate as to the aliveness of the ducklings, but I have to say, living with that kind of belief and optimism, it just rubs off.
I am just gonna...
This should keep my eggs warm.
Phil uses a step-by-step procedure to heat the eggs with the lamp, a logical solution to his mistake. But since algorithm procedures usually take longer, he switches to a heuristic. This simple thinking strategy was made by quick judgment, as most heuristics are. Although it would be more efficient than trying to set up the heat lamps, Phil's decision to sit on the eggs could be more risky.
Although cognitive strategies are useful in analyzing situations, there are tendencies that hinder problem solving. One such tendency is confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is the tendency to search for information that supports our preconceptions and to ignore or distort contradictory evidence. An example of this is in episode 13, after Phil has dinner with Claire's coworkers' wives. He does not want to believe that his relationship with Claire is similar to those of the women, but soon realizes that if all of the women are experiencing the same mistreatment, maybe he is too. In his next encounters with Claire, Phil pays close attention to her actions and looks for evidence to support the conclusions the wives have made about their husbands, even though there may be other more convincing grounds for Claire's actions. This encounter can be seen in the clips from the effortful processing section and also the misinformation effect. This cognitive strategy creates obstacles due to its ability to distort one's reality.
Another tendency that can hinder problem solving is the mental set. Mental sets occur when people approach problems in one particular way, often when it has been successful in the past. Mental sets interfere with problem solving because they cause an inability to see things from a new perspective. This cognitive strategy can be seen in episode 14 after Phil faints in the funhouse.
I recognize that I embarrassed the family this morning, but I assure you that
Phil, honey, just come on over here for 1 second. Honey, you are not the first person to put on a clown outfit, walk into a hall of mirrors, and I guess what I'm saying is if you think you need to do something to make up for that, don't think that.
Claire, trying to convince Phil not to overcompensate, suggests that he has used this strategy before to deal with embarrassment. Because it may have worked in the past, Phil uses the strategy of fixing everything in an attempt to correct his earlier mishap. After failing at various tasks, his mental set proves to be ineffective in solving this dilemma.
Here's an example of some modern research that relates to the topic of confirmation bias. This case studied the effect of confirmation bias in criminal investigations. Preferring hypothesis-consistent information could undermine the accuracy by leading investigators to disregard evidence that challenges their theory of a case. Eliminating confirmation bias from the judicial system is important to preserving true justice for defendants and avoiding situations such as the Duke Lacrosse sexual assault scandal. Intuition is an effortless, immediate, automatic feeling or thought as opposed to explicit or conscious thinking. It is what people describe when they have a bad feeling about something. The representativeness heuristic influences our decisions because we tend to believe information too easily if it matches our perception of a particular prototype. This may lead us to ignore other relevant information that could influence decision-making. Availability heuristics cause us to estimate the likelihood of an event based on its availability in our memory. This shortcut may lead us to inaccurately assess the likelihood of an event based on personal bias. Overconfidence is our tendency to be more confident than correct, which could lead to trusting our instincts more than we probably should. Finally, belief perseverance is clinging to one's initial conceptions even after they have been disproven.
Framing is the way in which an issue or situation is presented. The manner in which something is presented can profoundly influence our interpretation of how the situation should be handled. Framing relates to an instance in episode 13 when Phil hears about how the other wives interpreted Claire's gift-giving, both in the past and the present. He creates a mental image and judges the likeliness of Claire's disrespecting him by comparing his experiences with Claire to the experiences of the other work wives. This clip can be seen on the slide about misinformation effect. This mental image makes him search for evidence to confirm his insecurity, even though there may be contradicting evidence that provides another explanation to Claire's actions, which he finally realizes when he confronts her about the mistreatment.